Author, Idle Eighth. Law specialist, ToverN, or better known as Castrum. This is a tale of the Absolver, the first Absolver, the one to uncover the potential of the masks of moral. Opening. Cut scene. You wake up in your small apartment to faint screaming and rumbling coming from the outside. You uncover the window curtains just to find out the city centre has broken into absolute cataclysm. Below your high-top residence, you see the city collapsing as the bustling streets of people and commerce are being crushed by crumbling roads, falling into deep chasms caused by the earthquake. As for you, yellow fumes coming from the nearby mine befall the sky, closing in and killing much of the inhabitants in the city centre. The earthquake begins to form canyons and collapsing buildings. Parts of buildings are even disappearing. Lots have teleported into the fold. You quickly sprint out of your Adalian insulae and across a bridge leading to the outskirts of Raslan. You look back as whole families are consumed by the falling city. You are quickly halted and shocked by unearthly creatures, Etherans, dispatching of the city's population as if the Adalians have awakened some divine wrath. You are left no choice but to fight the godly creatures. Cutscene ends. You begin to fight against 4 Etherans on a bridge, which you are powerless against, and not long after, once you get lowered to about 10% health, cutscene. You are kicked with so much force you land on the other side of the bridge. The earthquake creates a huge crack in the bridge, which soon collapses, and the 4 Etherans fall from great heights to the toxic fumes in the ravine below. You make your way running to the edges of the city with hope of an escape from this catastrophic event, navigating through the rough road as it's splitting and caving in. Once you make it out of the Adalian heartland, you fall unconscious at the trail heading to the New Forest border due to heavy exhaustion. Post-opening sequence and early game plot. You are found by a small group of villagers and brought to a nearby village in New Forest while still unconscious. You wake up some hours later in a hut. Once you walk outside, you will find a villager who you can interact with. He will explain how you were one of the few who were able to escape the Calamity, and since the disastrous event, no one has been able to find out the cause of it. Another NPC explains how he's gotten recent news about how the rest of the world responded to the event, saying the nations which comprised most of the Adalian Empire's expanse took the downfall as a chance to consolidate their independence into successor states. The man was a monk and one of the survivors and referred to himself as a follower of Anlek. He and his fellow cultist believes that Adal's downfall was caused by the excessive mining of essence which held up the Empire. Another, cultist NPC, states that they for the longest time believed that essence had special characteristics and that it may have a divine aspect to them. Another guide tells you that the creatures called Etherans must be taken back to where they came from, the fold. The guides still don't know too much about it, but do know that the culmination of essence mining created a portal to our world, which is constantly expanding until our world is consumed. He says, "Us guides don't have enough manpower to repel the fold. We need your help and the help of others to stabilize the lands in rebellion and join them under our order, and for our cause to stop the spread of the fold." Bulk of the game. For the first 50% of the game and approximately 8 locations, the player will be defeating warlords and elite Karshi generals in the lands of New Forest, the Tear and Karshi, to stabilize and grow the guide's influence in these newly independent lands. Many nationalist and pan-tierist movements sprang up due to many warlords in both the Tear and New Forest, wanting to unify the tribal confederations under their family's name and establish central control under their tribe. This has caused the Tear and New Forest to suffer immense bloodshed in their populous and almost eradicating rival tribes in mass genocide. Although most tribes in New Forest seem to be rather friendly, it has led to Tearan Warlords to set up vassal states to increase their industrial agricultural production to fund wars in the Tearan lands. This lessens a lot of the chances for the guides to expand their influence. Many subjugated tribes would be more open to joining the guides in gratitude for you releasing them from the constraints of their warlords, and even accepting Anlek as their god and absorbing the values and beliefs of the guides. This would be one of the reasons why in the next few centuries after Absolver II, New Forest would become an industrial powerhouse and heavily valued by the guides, and also a reason why the Tearan people would learn to resent the guides. As for the Imperial Karshi, they are known to be more unified, and to even have their own identity as Karshi people before their independence from Adal. They are definitely more advanced, and which lets the whole of the Karshi population to more easily share nationalist ideals. But there is still a disdain towards the royal family, and a clear difference from peasants and nobility. The player sees an opportunity to inspire the peasants to rise and create rebellion, using this hatred from the peasants to benefit the order of the guides and initiate many fighters to their cause. Every main boss in these three regions will be someone of some important authority in each nation, and at least have smaller bosses for each region too. Have the new forest bosses easier as the player is just starting out. Second half. After the player stabilizes the lands of the Tear and New Forest, as well as weakening the authoritarian grasp the royal family has on the peasants of Karshi, you unlock the ability to go to the Uring region, which means you have crossed the 50% mark of Absolver. The Uring were told a premonition of the downfall weeks before the event by their sacred golden orbs, which they have relied on for most of their history. Lots of the Uring inhabitants fled the region and closed their borders, meaning although they hadn't felt the impact of the downfall, there was no way for them to receive news of the event. Their isolation policy was supposed to last several years until the fled comes back to Uring. They made it so the country would be able to withstand invasions and calamities by creating overprotective measures and defenses. As you approach a gate from the Tear into Uring, you see a nice old merchant standing right next to the gate and tells you that if you open the gate, he would be happy to sell some of his special items that were actually supposed to be delivered to a Uring oligarch. The only way you are able to access and open the door using an item dropped from one of the Karshi generals, presumed to be a diplomat, whose job is to improve Karshi and Uring relations. When you open the large gate, you get jumped by 3 Uring guard scouts, mini-boss, which you must beat to continue through the hostile path of Uring guards to the city of Uring. Once you get to the capital, bells ring alerting the guards to fight the intruder. Once you take care of the various kinds of guards, you may enter the Uring Palace, where you will beat the 2 top councilor tyrants, both specialized in the style of Forsaken. After beating the Uring boss, you'll be able to continue through a path which surprisingly leads to a monastery of the guides which you weren't aware of. This is Towerpoint. We resettled here as there was nowhere else for us to go, and while searching, we found this ancient temple to be fit for our stay, says one of the guides at the entrance. According to another guide near the enchanting room, presumes that the temple was once used for essence incantations by an ancient civilization or people who were once very friendly to Etherans, old Uring. Another guide inside the temple sends you on a mission to defend newly made guide outposts out in Lake Reaper from Ripan raiders, trying to destroy the outposts to preserve their paganistic beliefs from the guides. The syndicate responsible for integralist beliefs have become hostile to outsiders. Once you arrive at Reaper, you must defend one of the outposts from waves of raiders in the first location. Then, when you defeat the waves of enemies, you can now continue to the next location in Reaper, where you will fight the syndicate leader, which is the main boss for the Lake Reaper region. After defeating the boss, at the nearby guide outpost in Lake Reaper, a guide will tell you that they give you authority to explore the fabled lands of Green Haven and Motherland, and to retrieve and maybe even discover uncontacted tribes to maybe show them the way of Anlek. When you return to Towerpoint and walking up the stairway cutscene, once you get to the courtyard, there is a tall, strong, bulky man that lunges at you with no explanation. Battle. You start with 80% health after his strong kick. After getting him to 5% health, cutscene. He slowly backs up, shaking, then falls unconscious, falling straight to the ground. A guide slowly walks towards you and explains to you that he was our greatest warrior until now, and had been a test for you to see if you are ready to enter into Raslan alone and close the entryway to the fold and what it's being fueled by. Reinforcements will defeat any remaining Etherans after you stop the spread of the fold, and the guides open up a trail heading to the center of Raslan Tower. Ending. As you walk into Raslan, you meet a friendly Etheran who tells you how most Etherans were teleported by accident due to the downfall, which folded and unfolded things in and out of the fold, our home. Many Etherans got unfolded into Raslan without any context of why. This has angered them, and now they aren't doing anything toward closing the portal as revenge. The Etheran then hands you a mask of moral and gives you the power of folding by enchanting the mask and spiritually welding it onto your face using his own will. He says that you must close the access point between Illentia and the fold with the new powers he has granted you. You are the first Absolver, the first human an Etheran has ever used the mask on. As you walk through the path to the essence mines of the Raslan Tower, you start to see how the fold has sort of consumed static objects, sort of floating, and large parts of buildings gone and glitched between the fold and the physical world, and gets increasingly broken as you get to the portal into the fold. The road up the mines is filled to the brim with Etheran minions made of essence, gleam-controlled bodies left from the downfall, and a small amount of Etherans. Before entering the fold at the top of the tower, it is protected by a horde of enemies which you must beat before you can enter the opening into the fold. The very end game will act very similarly to the downfall mode, a series of challenges until you are able to get to the final boss arena. The final boss is an Etheran who has absorbed the energy and objects from the physical realm due to the downfall, and the vessel for why the fold is still open to the physical realm. He's able to warp his arm into swords and stones that he has absorbed. He's also able to revive minions to the arena using the powers of Gleam and duplicate himself. After defeating him, while disintegrating, he says to you, "You humans have corrupted the fold. We were indifferent to your people until you destroyed our home with your foolish essence incantations. I used the downfall to my advantage until you ruined it. You all had it coming." The friendly Etheran you met before folds himself at your location and says, "You have done the fold great service, bringing a stop to the fold's expansion. Farewell, Absolver." Proceeds to unfold you at Towerpoint. The guides had learnt of your doing and reward you with a special cloak to commemorate your heroic act, along with staying faithful to the law of Anlek. It is learnt that after you defeated the Etheran, lots of the items absorbed by him were dispersed all throughout Raslan. They say you must continue to explore your newfound power and share it with upcoming prospects following in your footsteps. We will call on you when the time is right. As much as I want this to be Absolver 2, I don't expect this to be used. The focus and purpose was to motivate, inspire, and stimulate ideas for Absolver 2. This is my favorite game, and its world building is what makes it truly Absolver.